with your faces ever, bro?
Oh, that you've been doing?
Yeah, of course. In the first few minutes, that's what we do. Yeah.
I didn't know you've been doing that.
Well, yeah, we start with your face.
You gotta look at my face, bro. I'm looking rough.
Well, you're live, so everyone now knows how you feel about yourself. a very warm welcome back to Stream School. So forgive the follow-on. I hate the word, but banter I was having with my dear friend Michael Scott, who's going to take us through a range of different science items this morning. How are you, Michael?
Good morning, guys. Good morning. Leon's only just told me that he's been showing this wonderful face off, which I'm ashamed of.
Never. What was it he said just before we got on the stream? What was it he said, Mike? He said, don't complain because 90% of people don't listen and 10% of people are happy it's you. So if you're complaining now, then obviously you're falling prey and missing out on your own advice, Mike. But maybe it's not that kind of advice we need from you, buddy. Maybe it's science advice. So the floor is yours. Let us know when you want to share your screen. And thank you so much as ever, buddy.
All right, no problems. I'm clicked on it now, yeah?
Yep.
All right. So, good morning, people. Welcome to your Friday biology. You'll notice I'm rotating between physics and biology. So, the plan for today is to kind of build on what we started looking at last week, which was cells. We looked at two different types of cells. We spoke about eukaryotic and we spoke about prokaryotic cells. Remember that eukaryotic, and the reason I'm going through this definition is because it's one that keeps on coming up throughout the whole GCSE specification. The term eukaryotic means that the cell contains a nucleus, and prokaryotic just means that there is no nucleus. So typically, bacteria is a prokaryotic cell, and we looked at some examples of eukaryotic cells, which were things like animal cells and plant cells last week. So I kind of really just want to pick it up from there again, and just to kind of give you that general structure of an animal cell. We had this prominent figure in an animal cell, which I will label as the nucleus. We also had these slightly smaller structures, which we call ribosomes. And if you remember, the ribosomes is where protein synthesis takes place, or the site at where proteins are made. We have these slightly larger structures in eukaryotic cells called mitochondria. And if you remember, mitochondria is the site where energy is released from respiration. We also have the cytoplasm, and this outer layer here is called the cell membrane. Now, it's quite important to have an understanding of the structure of the cell, because in today's lesson, we're going to focus on something called cell division, commonly referred to as mitosis. That's really what I want to focus on in this lesson today. So what we're going to do is we're going to focus primarily, most of today, we're going to focus on this part of the cell, which is the nucleus. Last lesson, or our last biology lesson, I taught you guys that, inside of the nucleus, we find DNA. And DNA exists on these thread-like, or exists as thread-like structures that we call chromosomes. And chromosomes always come in pairs, and that's because you know, one chromosome is from mum and the other chromosome is from dad. And that's why, you know, we have features of both of our parents. Now, if you just look to the right of this diagram, just over here, and I'll just zoom in a touch, you will notice that we have 23 pairs of chromosomes. Okay, so every single body cell in a human will contain 23 pairs of chromosomes. So, you know, if we were to break that down, we would say that we have 46 individual chromosomes. Okay. Now, I just want us to take, you know, just to focus on the 23rd pair, which is right here. You know, this is just a diagram to show those 23 pairs of chromosomes. But if we look at the 23rd pair, there's something special about the 23rd pair. And that's because we call these the sex chromosomes. And it's the 23rd pair, it's the 23rd pair of chromosomes that determine gender. So, for example, you'll notice that we have this X and Y chromosome, and kind of like, you know, the type of chromosome that you have in the 23rd pair determines whether you're a male or female. So, you know, in females, the 23rd pair of chromosomes are X and X. Whereas males, we typically have X and Y as our 23rd pair of chromosomes. And, you know, just to remember that chromosomes are made up. So, you know, each of these chromosomes over here, all of these chromosomes, they are built from something called DNA. Now, DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid. And typically, you need to know the structure of DNA. So, if we was to break down the structure of DNA, DNA is a very long and complex molecule. And hopefully you can see that, you know, DNA is this long molecule. We actually call it a polymer because it's an extremely long chain. But you'll notice that DNA has what we call a double helix shape. Okay, it has this double helix structure. And what that means is, if you think of, you know, like a spiral staircase, that's exactly the structure. Or if you had a ladder, you know, picture a ladder, and you was to twist that ladder, you know, that's exactly what the structure of DNA would look like. We can get into a bit more detail on DNA, but I'll save that for the future lessons because I really want to focus on mitosis today. So let's go to a clean page now. So if I put the heading of mitosis, I mean, now that we know the structure of a cell, now we know, you know, about the chromosomes and how many chromosomes we have within the nucleus, and the structure of DNA. Now we can really get into understanding what mitosis is all about. Now, that word mitosis just simply means cell division. Okay, it's the division of cells. And there's, you know, there are a few reasons as to why our bodies carry out mitosis. Okay, the first reason is growth. You know, the reason why we're not the same size as a baby is because our cells have been doing mitosis, which has allowed us to grow. We also need mitosis for repair. We may damage a number of our cells. We scrape our skin, and we need to repair those damaged cells. And our cells are repaired again through mitosis. The third reason that we need to do mitosis is for replacement. We lose hundreds of thousands of skin cells every day, just through washing and dressing. We lose throughout the day, and they will need replacing. And again, mitosis is a part of something that we call the cell cycle. Okay? And the cell cycle just means the growth and division of cells. One part of the cell cycle is mitosis, and the other part of the cell cycle is something that we call interphase. And it's during interphase where the cell grows and the organelles replicate. So what I mean by organelles are things like the ribosomes. They replicate, or another word for replicate is to make a copy. So the ribosomes make a copy. Mitochondria, for example, would make copies as well. And it's that causes the cell to grow. But what we're focusing on is, like I've said, we're just focusing on this part of the cell cycle, the mitosis part. And you would typically be expected to explain mitosis and what actually takes place at each stage of mitosis. So let's just go through the main stages of mitosis now. So we're going to start off with what we call our parent cell. Okay, the parent cell is our original cell, and I'm going to keep chopping and changing colors because hopefully it can make it a bit easier for you guys to understand and follow what's going on. So I'm not going to draw all 46 chromosomes. I'd be here all day doing that. So instead of drawing 46, I'm just going to draw 2. But, I want you guys to remember that the nucleus doesn't contain 2 chromosomes. It does contain 46. I'm just doing this out of saving a bit of time. So what happens is within the parent cell, we have our chromosomes. Now, the first stage of mitosis, let's see if my drawings are up to scratch with this, because the first stage of mitosis, I'm pretty happy with that. The first stage of mitosis is that each chromosome, oh, look at that, perfect.
Admiring your own artwork, Michael.
What's that, sorry?
Admiring your own artwork.
I'm in the zone now. I've drifted off. I'm in the zone.
I'm surprised you haven't zoomed in on it.
Say that again?
Surprised you haven't zoomed in on it.
You can do. Look at that. Look at that. The first stage of mitosis, okay, the first stage of it is that the chromosomes duplicate. Okay? They duplicate, they replicate, they make copies. Any of these terms would get you the mark. Okay? So the chromosomes duplicate in that first stage of mitosis. Then I'm going to have to shrink my diagrams down now because I can see I'm going to run out of space. In the second stage of mitosis, what happens next is these chromosomes then line up. The chromosomes line up in the center of the cell. Okay, so you can see that they've migrated from opposite ends of the nucleus, and they've now lined up in the center. So I will just make a note of that because that is one of the key stages as well. So the chromosomes line up. They line up in the center. Okay. And it's at this time that when the chromosomes line up in the center, that the nucleus membrane breaks down. Okay. In other words, you know, the nucleus kind of disappears now. The chromosomes have lined up in the center, and the chromosomes are not within the nucleus anymore. Now, the next stage of mitosis, oh, yeah, sorry, I've drawn the nucleus in even though it's gone. So the next stage of mitosis then is these chromosomes that were lined up in the center, they then get pulled to the opposite ends of the cell. And I'll give you a bit of a heads up. This is actually A-level biology, but it's something called spindle fibers. Okay, there you go. I've sneaked a bit of A-level biology in for you there. So it's actually something called a spindle fiber. But what these spindle fibers do is that they pull the chromosomes. They pull the chromosomes to opposite ends of the cell. Okay, so I'm gonna have to kind of see if I can zoom out a little bit.
Using all the technology today, Mike.
Ah, there we go. Look at this. I'm pleased with myself. I am.
Well, that's the shift, isn't it? You're just learning new tools. It's all stuff you once learned how to do in the classroom. Now you're just learning to do online.
That is it, sir. That is it. Right. So we've got our cell that's pulling. Sorry, the spindle fibers are pulling the chromosomes to opposite ends of the cell. And what actually happens now? What actually happens is, just gonna neaten this up.
You're channeling your inner Da Vinci today, Michael.
Oh, look, I am in the zone right now. Here we go. Okay, so what happens here is, you know, the chromosomes have been pulled to the opposite ends of the cell, and we can see here that the cell membrane, and cytoplasm has started to divide. It started to split. And what we're actually left with, what we end up with, are two cells, and the nucleus has now developed. But what we end up with, hopefully you guys can see this, but what we actually end up with are two cells that we call daughter cells. Now, hopefully you guys can notice that these daughter cells are exactly identical to the parent cell. Genetically, they are the same. So they are genetically identical. They are genetically identical to the parent. And that's exactly what we want to happen during mitosis. You know, we just said that we use mitosis for growth. So obviously the cells that we want to grow, we want them to be exactly the same as the original cell. And this is exactly how it happens. Another name for, you know, typically exam boards like to throw words to students that they may not have heard before. But anything that's genetically identical, we call a clone. So mitosis can also be referred to as a method of cloning. And this is exactly how we make copies of body cells. Tune in for next lesson and we will have a look at how we produce gametes or sex cells. And the floor is yours, guys.
Thank you, Michael. I appreciate you passing it back in the same way we passed it over. What are you up to for the rest of the day, my friend?
Well, just 1 second, sir. Sorry. For the rest of the day, I am now going to go for a walk, and then hopefully my phone should be coming today.
Oh, what? You got a new one or you got it fixed?
What's that, sorry?
You got the old one fixed or you got a new one?
Nah, I've just had to upgrade to the new one.
Good stuff, good stuff. Well, at least you've got something to look forward to. Probably like most of us, you're using a massive technological device for like 1% of its power. So, yeah.
That's it, that's it.
Technology will beat us eventually, Michael. Thank you so much again for the lesson, buddy. Really, really
Not a
appreciate
problem.
it.
Take care, guys.
God bless you.
Thanks.
All the best. Bye, bye.
Nish, how's your technical Friday been going?
Interesting.
Yeah, we've had more technology problems today than we have any other day.
Yep, yep.
On the brightest, I don't know. How's it out your window? It's super bright out there today.
I mean, it's not the best.
It looks well, up by the coast. It's beautiful. Of course, it can't go anywhere, but still looks beautiful. But yeah, I'll invite you to sign off as ever, my dear friend.
All right, cool. So here is the optional task for science. It was biology today. It is describe how different animal cells are specialised. Hopefully you got the answer to that from that session. I will be putting this task and any additional links up on Facebook and YouTube, and you can catch up on all the previous lessons if you missed any on both Facebook and YouTube as well. Up next, we have another science lesson, but it's chemistry.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I look forward to catching you shortly.
Yeah, see you in a bit.